Have you ever wanted something so badly? You pray and you pray and you pray and all of a sudden it happens. And not the way you thought it might. That was clearly the case for the Apostle Paul. In the introduction to his letter to the Romans, he wrote, "I long to see you, that I may impart to you some spiritual gift to make you strong. That is, that you and I may be mutually encouraged by each other's faith. I do not want you to be unaware, brothers and sisters, that I planned many times to come to you, but have been prevented from doing so until now, in order that I may have a harvest among you, just as I've had among the other Gentiles." Paul planned. And with the contacts that he had there, perhaps he planned a new outpost for missions like Antioch, or establishing a school in Rome, much like the one he had formed in Ephesus. Ministering alongside friends and co-laborers in Priscilla and Aquila and the others, who knows where God would have taken him from there. Now, through the subsequent court trials in Acts, Rome became a stronger and stronger likelihood, but not in the way Paul planned. We've looked at Paul's trial before Felix. At the end of chapter 24, Felix was recalled to Rome. He was replaced by Festus. Now, we're not given any details on this, but Josephus records that Felix was recalled to account for the brutal manner in which he suppressed the conflict between Jews and Syrians in Caesarea. Now, as the new proconsul, Festus likely wanted to establish positive working relationship with the Jewish leadership. Luke records for us 3 days after arriving in the province, Festus went up from Caesarea to Jerusalem, where the chief priests and the Jewish leaders appeared before him and presented the charges against Paul. They requested Festus as a favor to them to have Paul transferred to Jerusalem, for they were preparing an ambush to kill him along the way. No doubt Festus was tempted to earn goodwill and win the Jews to his side by acceding to their demands, and particularly given the situation with his predecessor Felix. Now, that said, his time in Jerusalem would not have been complete without a visit to Fort Antonia. One imagines, given the request, he would have inquired about Paul's case there. And perhaps they shared the story of the plot against Paul and the late-night armed escort to Caesarea. Now, angering the Jews wasn't particularly desirable, but nor was having a Roman citizen murdered by an angry mob. That would make sense of Festus's refusal and his invitation. If you got a case against him, they can be brought to Caesarea. Luke tells us after spending 8 or 10 days with them, Festus went down to Caesarea. The next day he convened the court and ordered that Paul be brought before him. When Paul came in, the Jews who had come down from Jerusalem stood around him. They brought many serious charges against him, but they could not prove them. In Luke chapter 23, you have a rather similar situation. Jesus stood before the then Roman procurator Pilate, while the Jewish leadership stood around making false accusations, upon which Pilate called together the chief priests, the rulers, and the peoples, and said to them, "You brought me this man as one who was inciting the people to rebellion. I have examined him in your presence and have found no basis for your charges against him." In like manner, Paul is standing before the current Roman procurator Festus. The Jews are accusing him, but unable to prove them. Now, there are differences beyond location. And to begin with, Pilate caved. Well, Festus did not. The second and much more significant is that Jesus went to the cross and died an atoning death on our behalf, while Paul appealed to Caesar. He was given free ride to Rome in order that he could witness to that very death and the resurrection that followed. In all likelihood, no school or hub of new mission happened in Paul's day. But he would nonetheless have the opportunity to do that for which he was called. Proclaim the good news of our Lord. May it be so for us, planned or unplanned. May we continually to see the opportunities presented to us as opportunities to point others to him. Have a blessed week.